And welcome back to Next Scene Podcast, the podcast taking on the Festival of Lights, one scene at a time. Once again, I'm your host, Sean. Unfortunately, once again, my co-host Brian will not be able to join us, but in his stead, in his place, I have two wonderful, magnificent guests, all the way from Escape from New York Minute and Flash Gordon Minute. It's Eric. Welcome, Eric. How you doing?
Good, although I already have a grievance with you for messing up the opening of your own show. So I'm airing that right now.
All right.
Gordon's alive?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I got a lot of problems with you people. And another person that I have problems with, it's Robin from Karate Kid Minute. Welcome, Robin. Kia.
I guess. Hi, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks a lot for coming on. And if listeners, if you haven't guessed, tonight, apropos, as this is the sixth night of Hanukkah, December 23rd, 2022, which also happens to be Festivus. And as a Festivus miracle, we are discussing the strike from season 9 of Seinfeld. Yeah. So before we jump into it, let's kind of what's your history? What's your history with Seinfeld? What's your history with the episode? Is this something you're watching every year to celebrate Festivus? I'll start with you, Robin. What's your Seinfeld story?
Oh, my Seinfeld story. Yes, I speak sign language, but that is for the other podcast. Anyway, that was a dumb joke. So I like Seinfeld when it was originally on. That's how old I am, and I watched it here and there, and then I kind of realized that once Seinfeld hit Netflix, like I had friends who were like really into it. I have friends that like quote it left and right, and I was never that guy. So actually, when it hit Netflix, I went ahead and just watched the whole thing from beginning to end. And that was just recently. So I was very excited to be able to talk Seinfeld while it was so fresh in my mind. I have watched the Festivus episode. Sorry, the strike. Every year or so, I just whenever I see the memes start popping up, I go, "Oh yeah, the Festivus episode. I should watch that again." But it's so funny that it is one of those things that it's like the very last season. You wouldn't expect an episode so much of a masterpiece to be ingrained like a holiday special you should watch every year. But I really love it.
Yeah, I kind of echo a lot of those sentiments. I'm currently in the midst of a rewatch myself. I was a watcher when it was originally on, but I've been rewatching on Netflix. I think we're near the end of season 5, so I'm not quite up to this point. And also had the same thought watching this episode, and that this is season 9 of a sitcom, and this is whiz bang stuff. I mean, this is just jam packed, and it's not just a good episode to watch. It's got like memorable catch lines, things like like Festivus, I think it's unusual that a show is introducing new concepts and new ideas this late, and new catchphrases this late in its run that are still memorable. Things like, no bagel, no bagel, no bagel, and Festivus and the Two-Face, and there's so much going on, and that it's I think most of the other series we're talking about for these nights are episodes that are kind of earlier in a run. But so this was the ninth and last season of Seinfeld, and they were still packing it in. So Eric, what's your history with the strike?
So the show as a whole, Seinfeld is my favorite show. It has been since it was aired, so going back more than 30 years. So the only reason I'm not doing a rewatch on Netflix is I've seen every episode probably a million times already. I am one of those people that Robin referred to where I'm constantly quoting the show. So I saw this episode when it aired. I've obviously seen it in reruns a bunch of times. Interestingly enough, the Festivus subplot for me never quite clicked for me. I always considered it actually to be a bit of an overrated plot. I know it's a very big deal. I know it's based on a real thing, but just something about the aluminum pole, the feats of strength, I don't know, something about it just sort of never quite clicked for me. I think it's not the strongest plot of this episode, but because Seinfeld is my favorite show, I will always take an opportunity to talk about Seinfeld, even if it's an episode that's not among my top of near the top of my list. That I don't actually have an actual list, but just if I were making a top 20, top 30 Seinfeld episodes, I would probably not put this on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can we get to the area of the grievances yet, Sean? Are we there yet?
I did not. We never stop. We never stop the airing of the grievances here at Next Scene Pod. But this is this has been a hit with me since it first aired, and this actually it was December. Where is it? December 18th, 1997. Was the original air date, and funnily enough, in 1997, Hanukkah, as the differences between our solar and lunar calendars. So Hanukkah moves around, and in 1997, Hanukkah actually started on December 23rd. So Festivus would have been the first night of Hanukkah in that year. So strangely enough, and so do you want to say something? You want to jump in there?
Oh no! I mean,
Oh.
I also I had a bit of trivia about the airing. That this is the last episode that aired before they announced that the series was going to be canceled. Well, not canceled, but they were gonna end the series with this season.
Wrap it up. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, okay. That actually pops a memory into my head that when this episode was on the air, I was just out of college, and I was in my first job out of college when I was a radio reporter. And I was of the mind of, just read the news, don't interact, don't reveal your personality on the air with the hosts or anything like that. But when they announced that the show was ending, and so I read a story about it on the news. Oh, it's been announced, Seinfeld will be ending at the end of the season. The host came on and said, "Oh man, what do you think?" And I couldn't not talk about Seinfeld on the air. So I was like, yeah, it's a bummer, man. It's my favorite show. And it was the first time that I broke news character and realized, wait, this is fun. Why I shouldn't be stoic news, man. It's more fun the other way.
Yeah, there's certain just kind of events in history that there's before and after, and when you're in that moment, just the emotion comes up, and it's so natural to react as a human and not as a newscaster or just a talking head on television or radio. I think of Walter Cronkite announcing the assassination of JFK. I think about the Challenger shuttle disaster, and then when it was announced that Seinfeld would be ending. I think is one of those events where it can be forgiven to break character and show a little emotion. You're only human. It's only human.
It was rough.
Yeah. So what we've usually been doing is kind of going through and trying to quickly summarize the action of the episode, but there is so much going on. There are so many different storylines. I mean, your typical sitcom will have like your A plot, your B plot, and then maybe if there's some characters of the ensemble cast left out of the first two, they'll have like a super minor C plot that gets like just a scene or two. But there is, so we've got, kind of George has the plot line with Festivus, as we've, referenced with his father, Frank, and then also introduced the concept of the human fund, something that I quote and bring up every year in terms of what gifts I'm giving, the human fund and his boss, that comes up. And then Elaine has her plot with the free sub, her punch card that she's got to get. She's one more sub is her 24th that she then gets a free one. And then the different fake phone numbers she's been giving out to people, to guys that she doesn't want to be able to call her. So the fake number thing. You've got the Kramer and H&H Bagels that apparently Kramer's been on strike for 12 years that we didn't know about. And then on top of that, kind of like the fifth or sixth plot line is, the titular character, Jerry, has this thing going on with this woman, Gwen, and her appearance, and as that shifts depending on the lighting.
Right.
So we'll try to get through this, but listener, you'll have to forgive us because we've got a lot to get through. So the action opens up with Jerry, Elaine, and George at Tim Whatley's Hanukkah party. And to refresh your memory, listener, Whatley had converted to Judaism so he could tell Jewish jokes, which offended Jerry as a comedian.
I'd forgotten that. Like when we started this, it's like started the episode. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, because it's Jerry's. there was a real debate about like, is this cultural appropriation if like you just converted? I mean, does that just give you automatic license to make the jokes or just start saying, L'chaim to people left and right?
Yes, that's the famous anti-dentite episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really funny. This is actually Watley's last Seinfeld appearance. Sorry, I read a lot of trivia. And I think his last words on the show are just Mazel Tov.
How appropriate. Yeah. And so Tim Watley is played through on multiple episodes, was played by Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, he did
whatever
nothing
became of
after
that
this.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's high point of his career.
Horrible career that guy had.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so what we get in this scene is pretty much our only real Hanukkah content of the episode. Now, different scenes like in Monk's in the restaurant, in the diner, there's like stars of David, like with the holiday decoration, there's Hanukkah decoration in the background, but like avert Hanukkah content, we've got Tim saying Happy Hanukkah as he's running around trying to corner women with mistletoe. So I don't know if he's totally, totally bought into this new Jewish identity. He seems to be playing like both ends there.
Yeah, well, that feeds into the whole thing that he only converted for the jokes, right? I mean, the mistletoe is purely Christmas, so that gives Jerry's argument significant fuel.
Exactly. Yeah, once again, Jerry is right on the nose, as he always is.
I really was thinking about this. I wasn't sure, and I again, I just went searching through the internet, like which characters are actually explicitly Jewish, and I think Jerry is the only one that's like out and out Jewish on the show. I mean, they even say on this episode, when George was growing up, his father hated all the commercial and religious aspects of Christmas, so he made up his own holidays. So I had just assumed that Frank and Estelle were Jewish, and George was as well, but I guess not.
No, they are not. Yeah, I think Jerry, his parents, his family, the other Seinfelds that we meet, presumably are Jewish. We've got Tim Watley, who has converted. I don't even know if any of the various women that Jerry has dated through the years in the episodes.
Well, there's at least one, because there's an episode where he is making out with a woman during Schindler's List, and her parents, being devout Jews, are very unhappy about that.
Oh yes, okay. Well, and then I don't remember the name, but there's their friend where they attend the bris. And
yes, of course, right.
They don't have to be Jewish, but I will assume. I'll go out on the ledge.
And a bris, if you're not
and
Jewish,
say, if you're having a bris, you're probably Jewish. But yeah.
Elaine refers to, I'm sorry to skip ahead, but her time in the bagel shop as a schwitz as well. So I don't know if that's because it was a bagel shop or because that is a term that comes naturally to her, vernacular. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, here in New York, people use schwitz even if they're not Jewish.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jewishness around in Manhattan.
Yeah. So
it wouldn't be unusual for a non-Jewish person to use a phrase or Yiddish like that. So yeah. So speaking of Elaine, we kind of get her plot line kicked off when she is approached by a character who I think is only referred to as Denim Vest, identified by his attire, played by a kid in the hall, Kevin McDonald. But yeah, so he approaches Elaine, and she is not, I guess, not impressed, not attracted. But I thought this was strange. I'm double checking my notes. Like she actually offers. She doesn't wait for him to ask for her number. She says, "Hey, why don't I give you my number?" And then gives him a fake number. She's told us she intends. She kind of expects, a guy at a party is going to ask for my number, and so I'm going to give him a fake one. But she actually offers it. She's like, she doesn't say, "Let me give you a fake number," but she says, "Let me give you my number," and then gives him a fake number.
I was why do sitcom characters have such a hard time saying no? But then again, maybe like she's just so used to this. It's just like, yeah, let's get to the part where I give you the number and I could just blow you off from here on out, and you're going to think you have a chance, but now I don't have to talk to you anymore because there's a promise of more talking later when there's really not going to be any.
Okay, yeah. And I assume being a woman, Elaine knows more about this than I do.
Yeah.
That makes sense. She figures. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, that makes sense. She understands his goal is to get her phone number. And then once he has that, he's going to be like, well, I don't want to jinx it and say something stupid. So I'm going to avoid her the rest of the night.
He should have avoided the denim vest as well. With snaps.
With snaps.
Yeah, my take on that scene was also, I know that they only have 22 minutes in the episode, but I mean, Kevin McDonald's talking to her for like less than 10 seconds before he asks her out. It's like really fast. He just walks over, says like one thing to her, and then asks her out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what Jerry does too. So.
Oh yeah, his great pickup line. Yeah, I don't know how that works.
I love that pickup line so much.
I do too, and I was thinking. Now I'm happily married isn't strong enough word. I am ecstatically married, so I am very thankful that I don't need to use pickup lines. But when I was single, I was no good at it, and I'm still surprised that someone agreed to marry me. But I'm thinking, if knock on wood, God forbid, if something happened and somehow I found myself single, this would be a handy line, because what do you say to a woman at a party? Other than, unless you can talk about the snaps on your denim vest, I wouldn't know what else to discuss. But just saying, I can run really, really fast.
Right.
Because that's not something that they can really verify, because we're in an apartment, it's crowded, there's lots of people. Unless she's like going to step outside, she really can't check that. So, yeah, I really do like that line.
Use that in an online dating profile too, because how are they going to prove it?
Actually, how are you going to prove it? How are you going to check that? So moving on from Tim Watley's party, our next scene is at the restaurant at Monk's. George is going through his mail at the diner as one does, and we kind of kick off.
I love. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep interrupting you for every single beat of this episode, but
please do.
I love the idea. He's like, yeah, this is what I have to offer here. Like, what do you have to discuss? I got my mail here.
Well, he's only there
just go
because
through and talk about it.
And he's only there because he called out sick from work because he ate all the cocktail franks at Watley's party. Also.
Yeah. So call back to the previous scene 30 seconds ago. Yeah. He ate all the cocktail franks. I really like that, and it's true. He's bringing something to the table, literally. And so he gets one thing. So he gets a card from the aforementioned Tim Watley saying a donation has been made in George's name to the Children's Fund. And George is upset. George, has got him Yankee tickets. I assume George didn't pay through his previous employment with the Yankees. He still has a connection. So he gives Tim Watley Yankee tickets, and in return, Watley gives his gift to somebody else.
Yeah, and the classic George case here, his anger is that it should be an eye for an eye is his response, which of course is not something where you give a gift for a gift. Eye for eye is retributive justice. So he has his metaphor completely wrong, which of course just adds to the humor of his anger.
Right. Yeah, that's not what that phrase means at all. And then the other thing George has gotten in the mail is a card from his father, from Frank, for Festivus. Dear son, happy Festivus. So so we introduce a new holiday, which actually was not invented by Seinfeld or the writers of this series. How much to either of you, do you know a lot about Festivus, or just what you've read on the internet?
That's what I read on the internet.
Yeah.
I know it was someone involved with the show. It was actually based on something from their childhood.
Yeah, but we probably all read the same thing. So, Dan O'Keefe was a writer for the show, and the holiday was created by his father, Dan O'Keefe, Daniel. And actually, it included, some of the things mentioned in in the episode, like the airing of the grievances. So that's an actual Festivus tradition, not just. So this is a real holiday. This is not just a creation of the Seinfeld program, which is nice to know. And it's a big deal in my household. We celebrate every year.
Well, the sad thing that I read was that like Dan O'Keefe was just as affected by this holiday by his father as George is in the show, and that it actually is pretty troubling for him to actually go through and describe it and write it. You know,
relive those memories.
Yeah.
Well, that's a real special moment in hell that he created for himself, because now 30 years later, everybody's still talking about Festivus. I mean, he made it so much worse for himself.
Right. This holiday, probably this tradition probably would have died out if he had not mentioned it, but now it's spread through the I forget what word I was coming up with. I gotta cut those out. Zeitgeist. Yeah, well, yeah, it's really made its way into the fabric of our culture.
Right.
Sort of he turned Frank Costanza into a sort of messiah, spreading the word of Festivus.
Yeah. He's so great in this episode.
Oh, yeah. And then with Elaine, we also get the introduction to her storyline. So she's not eating because she's going to Atomic Sub later, where she's got a card that when she gets 24 stamps, she becomes a submarine captain, which means she gets a free sub, which is this is a thing that actual restaurants have done, but isn't it usually like 10 or 12
I know,
items, like 10 visits, you get a free one. 24 is an awfully high number.
Yes, I used to have the Subway Club card. Back when Subway would give you the little stamps, you'd get 1 stamp if you bought a 6-incher and 2 stamps if you bought a foot long. And if memory serves, once you had 12 stamps, you got a free 6-incher. And I filled up several cards, so I had a lot of free Subway subs back in high school and college.
You earned those subs. You came by them honestly. Absolutely. Yeah, there was a good pizza place not near me that has since closed years ago, but they had a similar thing. You could get 10 large pizzas, you get one free, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I may still have a card floating around somewhere. I think it was 10. Which 10 or 12 are reasonable numbers. 24 is that's a sitcom number.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a Manhattan number. Maybe Manhattan they kick it up a notch.
Elaine might be watching her weight. Maybe it's like 24 6-inchers, but it could be 12 footlongs.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know. We don't get into that level of detail, but could be. So our next scene is back at Jerry's apartment, where a couple things. So one is Elaine realizes she's written her fake phone number on her Subway card, or not on her on her Atomic Sub card. She's written the fake number on the Atomic Sub card, which she gave to Denim Vest. So she's got to get that back, and she's got to figure out how to reach this guy after giving him a fake number. And the other thing we discover is that apparently Kramer has a job. Well, we learned a bunch of things. Kramer has a job. Kramer has been on strike for 12 years, and the strike is over. That they've given into his demands. That they get paid $5.35 an hour, which was the minimum wage at the time.
Yeah, they gave in by force, I guess, of the government.
Yeah, they gave in by following labor laws.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Well, at least I guess that means that their original demands were realistic. It just took 12 years, but eventually they got there. Yeah. And I love this is a continuing thing. This is almost from episode 1, this storyline with Kramer in terms of his occupation or career or lack thereof, and what does he do for money, and how is he living in Manhattan when he never seems to actually work. At one point actually had an intern, but I don't know what he did. Yeah, and this is just out of nowhere. That's like, oh yeah, by the way, he's been on strike for 12 years in from the bagel business.
Would have been a nice revelation in the last episode that Kramer's just independently wealthy and never said anything to anybody.
Yeah. or have him go back to work. Maybe that would have been a better send off for him at the final episode. Is just be like,
Yeah.
well, it's been fun. I just can't stand around here talking with you guys all day. I've got to get back to work. Yeah. So, and he sees, I don't know, do we see the business card? He pulls out a business card and hands it to Elaine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it says Cosmo Kramer on it.
Oh, that's yeah. So it says Cosmo Kramer, bagel technician.
Yeah. At H&H Bagels,
yeah.
which
H&H.
I showed my girlfriend this. She'd never seen it before this morning, and she says, "Oh, I've been to H&H Bagels. Apparently, they're a real thing."
Yeah. So it turns out, now I don't know if they existed previously or if this is are they named after the show, but they probably existed. This is probably a real thing. They've got a couple locations, Upper East Side, Upper West Side. They're in the food court at both Kennedy and LaGuardia airports.
Mm-hmm.
Coming soon to Penn Station, so you've got that to look forward to. But yeah, and they do, according to their website, they ship bagels. You can order frozen bagels to ship to you wherever you are in the world.
That is a great Festivus gift to send to a Seinfeld fan. I think they got a package for H&H.
Yeah, they do. They have like a package. It's get a 2 dozen bagels with cream cheese and smoked salmon. You can get the whole kit, which is
I was dying for a bagel after all these bagel scenes. Dying for it.
There's that number 2 dozen. That's a lot of bagels to order at once. 2 dozen bagels. If you're not having a party, that is a lot of bagels.
That is a lot of bagels. I guess if you're having them shipped, you want to kind of make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
I keep 12 frozen, and then thaw the other ones out.
Yeah,
keep them on ice.
But yeah, so check that out. They're at hhbagels.com. I was going to make like a discount code joke, but yeah. Sponsor of this episode. If you go to hhbagels.com and put in the coupon code Festivus for I don't know, let's say 10% off.
Put in coupon code no Elaine.
As guests of the show, do Robin and I get like a free dozen bagels or something also?
Yes, you'll find 1 dozen bagels, the type of your choice in your gift basket in the green room after the show.
Oh yes,
so you'll get that after recording.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we've got there's plain, there's poppy, sesame, whole wheat, cinnamon raisin. They do everything these days.
Never thought I'd see the day.
Never thought I'd see the day. Yeah. So that actually brings us back to our next scene. Getting back to the program, our next scene is at H&H Bagels, where we see Kramer, getting back to work. Proud to announce that the strike is over. His manager, I don't know if this is the same manager. So the manager, not necessarily his manager, but the manager right. there is saying like all the other guys got jobs like 10 years ago, which makes sense. But they happen to need somebody for the holidays. So Kramer's there. He straps on an apron and gets to work. And that's where he sees, those raisin bagels, and he'd never thought he'd see the day.
I looked that up, and cinnamon raisin bagels were invented in the 50s, and Lender's actually first started popularizing them in New York. So that's a lot longer than 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the raisin bagel. What do you guys think? Do you like fruit in your bagels?
I like the cinnamon raisin bagel. I like a change of pace occasionally. It's not my favorite one, but every once in a while, sure.
Oh, it's my favorite. Absolutely. Put a little strawberry cream cheese on there.
Wow. All right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm a traditional kind of guy. I'll go the plain. I'll do an onion or an everything with cream cheese and lox, or a smoked whitefish, something like that. I don't do the raisin or the blueberry bagels or anything of that sort. But I'm
a child at heart, so
Yes. There you go. All right.
I'll I'll eat almost any bagel other than plain. I can't. Plain is just I gotta have something. Poppy seed, salt bagels, got to be something on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but a nice warm, fresh bagel right out of the oven, so good. Hard to beat that.
Now, if we're talking about like a breakfast sandwich, you got to stick with like a plain or a poppy or everything, you know.
Well, if you're doing like a pork roll or tail of ham, that kind of stuff, you don't want to distract from the meats.
Right.
But I think it's a large world. There's room for all sorts of bagels.
No sweets with my meats. That's
No
a
sweets
that's
with
a
my
H and
meats.
H promise.
Okay. um, yeah. So our next scene is at the off-track betting shop that Elaine has been giving out as her fake phone number. So she's stopping by to check to see if check her messages and see if Denim Vest has called. And yeah, the folks the two guys working behind the counter are very familiar, very interested to hear that name. I imagine they've gotten many calls over the years from men looking for Elaine Bennis.
Yeah, that's
And you know
because
who's
their phone number is 663-52463. The extra E.
These two guys are so great that so the guy that does most of the talking, it turns out, is actually quite a famous person and not really for acting. He's like a
Yeah.
screenwriter, Tracy Letts. But his line delivery here, this is one of those line deliveries that has stuck with me for decades. That who's a man? I'm a man.
I'm
Who
a
else is
man.
a
I'm a
man?
man.
Charlie, he's a man. And it just
I'm
the
a
way that
man.
he says that is just it's a perfect line delivery. It kills me every single time I watch this episode. I absolutely love it.
Oh yeah, this is so good, and it's for a small part, but it definitely keeps the comedy rolling.
Yeah,
Part of the sitcom.
And
What's
I have
going
to
on
just
with
say,
Charlie, by the way?
Yeah.
his smile, that creepy smile. And I mean, really, both of these guys are just he's just sitting there with that horrible beard and that creepy smile, and he's just sitting there smiling, and it's so great. I mean, he barely even says anything, and he's a memorable character.
Yeah, very memorable. And so they naturally ask for Elaine's number so they can call her when when Denim Vest calls, and she just happens to have Kramer's business card with the number for H&H. So again, she is still not giving out her real number. We still don't know what her number is, but she hands over the H&H card, or she gives them H&H's number, and also puts a sawbuck down on Captain Nemo in the third at Belmont. As one does.
Mhm.
And our next scene is back at the restaurant. Jerry is meeting up with Gwen. I guess this is the first time seeing her since Watley's party. And this is where we get introduced to the concept that, kind of how someone looks is going to depend on the lighting, the environment, the scenery.
Yeah, I mean, some people look differently in a different kind of light, you know? I don't know if it's that drastic, but just like, oh wait, what's going on here? But I do love that they really they did lighting, they did the makeup, they did the prosthetic. I read they'd put like a prosthetic like under her lip or something, to really accentuate those like stuck out teeth.
Yeah, because she looks so different.
Yeah.
That it's the good look versus the bad look on the two faces.
Yeah,
And even
go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, like, even so Jerry runs into Watley and says, "Oh, I am actually meeting someone that I met at your party," and even he is taken aback. I don't know if he recognizes this as someone he had in his home just a few nights ago.
Right. And I read that a little bit of trivia that they were planning on having a different actress play Gwen in different parts, like that, but they figured the audience would be way too confused.
Yeah, that would not have worked.
No, it's much. I think it's better having just the same actress and then playing with lighting and makeup and prosthetics to
It's
pronounce
funnier
the
that way.
difference.
It's funnier that way too. I think the joke wouldn't have worked if it was two different actors. The whole humor of it is that here's this very good-looking woman that they're making to look ugly in certain lights. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so we don't get to enjoy the rest of that meal. We cut away. We're back to Jerry's apartment. Oh, and I should say, like, I don't know. Did I say back at the? They're not back at the original restaurant. They're not back at Monk's. This is a like kind of a fancy restaurant where Jerry is
Right.
meeting Gwen for the date, and then he runs into Tim Whatley. It's a different restaurant. So we actually get they actually do go to more than just that one restaurant throughout the run of the show. But so presumably this is, I'm guessing the next day, and we're back at Jerry's apartment, and Jerry and George are discussing the idea that someone could be, attractive one day and not attractive the next. And George, being the man-child that he is, thinks of Two-Face, like the Batman villain.
I know, and the amount of like awe and reverence that Jerry like the Batman villain,
Yeah.
because
And then
he's
George
also a
is-
man child as well. So
Yeah. Well, and then George kind of like is annoyed, like if that helps you, as if he came like this is an entirely different Two-Face concept that has nothing to do with this childish comic book character.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then George is also introducing his sort of his reaction to the previous gift to a foundation that he received from Whatley for the Christmas present that he's going to be handing out to the people at his office. It's a donation. A donation has been made in your name to the Human Fund. And that's a name which, at least in my mind, will live forever. The Human Fund. That's just a great concept, because it's so, it sounds so good. Who's going to come out against humanity? I mean, who can be against that? But it's so generic.
Well, yeah, it's money for people. So
It's money.
you can't be against money for people.
And it's just genius in its simplicity.
It brings up a question. It comes up, at the beginning party, or sorry, when George is opening the mail as well. Like, I've never gotten a donation in my name given to an organization as a gift before. And I mean, like nowadays, it's like it's your birthday, and you're like, on Facebook, please, instead of sending me anything, send something to this charity or whatever. I'm trying to raise this much money. That's about as close as I've ever gotten to that kind of thing. But I've never actually gotten a gift like, I didn't get you a gift. I donated this thing that, perhaps a charity that you like works as well. But yeah. Or if it's like somebody that's recently passed away and like gifts, please donate to this charity that they supported. That's probably the only other way. I've never actually gotten it as a gift, though.
Yeah, same here. Like, people have requested, or if someone has passed, in lieu of flowers, make a donation to. Oftentimes, it's a foundation that's supporting research of whatever killed the person. That's a common one. But to like preemptively give a gift, make a donation for someone who hasn't asked for it. Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened to me, and I don't know how often that happens in real life. But I think, like I said earlier, I am tempted every year for those friends and family members where it's just hard to figure out what what is it they might want that they haven't gotten for themselves, or what's something that they they wouldn't buy for themselves that they kind of need someone else to do it for them. And just the fallback is always, well, I could just make a donation to the Human Fund.
Yeah.
And then we get what will be our last scene of this first act is at H&H Bagels, where Kramer, so Frank walks in. He's gotten a message from Kramer. Kramer wants to learn more. He just says, "Tell me everything, about this Festivus," and we learned the tale.
Are we gonna just read everything that Frank says in this episode? As rain
Pretty
blows
much.
upon him is pretty much one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I mean, might be my favorite Frank Costanza line in any episode ever of the entire show. As a rain blows upon him.
The rain blows upon him.
As rain blows upon him, I realized there has to be another way.
Somebody please Like, do a Frank Costanza claymation Christmas special based all around this story of the doll. I please. There's got to be a bored Seinfeld fan out there with a lot of clay. Please put it together.
Oh, please. Oh, I am there. I am signing up for that Kickstarter. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With the slogan, "A Festivus for the rest of us."
Yes.
I mean, it rhymes. It's a natural. It's great. And Kramer remarks that must have been some kind of doll. She was.
Yeah. She was.
She, like calling her she.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's step out. Let's wrap up Act 1. We'll step out of the episode for a little bit. And so I will ask you two, my guests. So does this qualify as a true Hanukkah special, do you think? In the context of, I kind of say, like, it's a Hanukkah special or a Christmas special with a Jewish friend? A lot of the television episodes that came up that were listed, as supposedly Hanukkah episodes they were the Christmas episode. And there's one, the main character has like one Jewish friend. So they kind of get some Hanukkah mentions in, is kind of the origin of that question. So where does this fall? Is this a true Hanukkah special to you?
I say no. I think other than Watley's party being a Hanukkah party, the focus is really Festivus as an alternative to Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every year there may be a couple of actual Christmas movies that I would watch, but I like to base around my movies just to be in the season. Watch like alternative Christmas movies, like movies that have a little bit of Christmas in it. It takes place during the Christmas, like basically do a Shane Black marathon.
There you go. Yeah.
And so it's got the holidays happening in the background, but mainly the movie is about something else, like people being murdered left and right or whatever. This is an alternative Hanukkah special. I think think it shows Hanukkah as a thing, and there's Hanukkah parties. It's not all just Christmas. But the guy that's hosting the Hanukkah party is kind of a fakie, we're known as, and Frank's come up with a new idea, and sometimes that's, the holidays are all about family, I guess. What's important, and maybe Festivus is, what we should all aspire to.
Yeah, I give this I give this kind of half marks in that, like you said, it's there's not a lot of Hanukkah content. We don't get like this certainly isn't the Rugrats holiday special. We don't get a retelling of the Hanukkah story and the origin for that holiday. But at the same time, it's not a Christmas episode. We're not really buried under we don't get in, we hear about the Christmas story and the origin of that holiday, and a lot of Christmas traditions other than the exchanging of gifts. So there's not a lot of Christmas stuff, but there also is not a lot of Hanukkah stuff. It is more of a Festivus episode. Like you said. Yeah. So, and we can dive into that a little bit more, but let's get back to the action. So we kick off Act 2, where we're at George's office, and George is spreading holiday cheer, handing out his gifts to his coworkers. He's got his little cards. He gives it to one coworker, Sandy, who is I think gives George's gift the consideration it's due.
Understandable reaction.
Yeah, yeah. She's unimpressed to say the least. Yes, thank you. Thanks him for this piece of paper and walks off. And then he hands this to hands a card to his boss Kruger, and he reads it and he says, "What is this?" George says, "The Human Fund," and Kruger says, "Whatever," which is again the appropriate reaction.
I got to tell you, a real Festivus miracle happened this morning when I rewatched this movie this episode, because I watched this episode, and then afterwards, Kim and I had watched Gremlins the night before. So she's like, "Hey, I'd like to check out Gremlins 2. I'd never seen it." So I popped on Gremlins 2, and they had exterior shot of the Clamp Tower. in Gremlins 2. And I was like, that looks really familiar. And it wasn't until later when I was doing some research that the exterior of Kruger's the business there is the same exact exterior shot they use for Gremlins 2, the Clamp Tower. I was like, how did I somehow get a double shot of this building in one morning? It was a Festivus miracle.
Wow, that is an amazing connection. Oh, what? Yeah, I didn't put that together, but I'm paused at 9 minutes 50 seconds into the episode, which is the time without commercials, and yeah, it's it's Clamp Tower.
It
That
is, yeah.
is that is frightening.
I could see Kruger Enterprises being in Clam Tower. I'm like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Hmm. But the other thing I like about this scene is George winging the gift certificate at somebody that's off screen. You're just, ow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and like, yeah, George isn't even really trying to sell this. He's not describing like this. Oh, here is this precious artifact that symbolizes, this monumental donation towards this great thing. It's like, no, here's some cards I printed out, and he's just dealing them out.
Yeah.
Good old George. Our next scene is we're back at H&H, where Frank and Kramer are still discussing. I can only assume that this is like the same day, the same shift. So they're just still discussing, H&H, and Frank is continuing his instruction on, on the traditions that you gather around the family, you tell them all the ways they have disappointed you over the past year, which is,
amazing.
Which is something that a lot of holiday gatherings descend into anyway. So why not make it part of the pageantry? Just work it into the tradition. And then of course there's no tree. There's just a pole. So there's no decoration or anything.
Oh,
And,
the faraway look that Jerry Stiller gets in his eyes when he's like, I find tinsel distracting. Like, he's been through so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good. And then, of course, so now Kramer, because and anyone who's religious, you always know that the converts always go overboard. The converts are always more ardent than the people that have grown up with it. So instantly, Kramer, now needs to have the 23rd off to celebrate Festivus, which kind of defeats the whole purpose if he's been hired to work during the holidays.
They really pulled a Watley.
Yeah. So then Kramer, so turn around, he's going back on strike. He's striking for his right to celebrate new holidays. But Elaine cannot follow him because she's still waiting for the call from Denim Fest. Our next scene is another quickie in a taxi in a cab. Jerry is picking up Gwen. And we get a demonstration of just how powerful this two-face phenomenon is. That even within the confines of the cab, between one moment and the next, she can turn. They work it into the dialogue, so they're talking about what they where should they go to eat? Do you want Chinese or Italian? Gwen says, I can go either way. Jerry says, you're telling me. Our next scene is now we're back at the Monk's, the original restaurant, where Kramer and Frank continue to talk about Festivus. George and Jerry are talking, continue to talk about Two-Face. Jerry determines the only place that she is consistently good looking is the one particular booth in Monk's, in the coffee shop. So that's where he's got to bring her there all the time.
How much did Jerry and Gwen go through for him to discover that? Like they're usually sitting up front in that booth right there, but how did he figure out to get her in the back booth? Just how many dates have they been on? I just don't know. Right. Did he cycle through?
It really could have just been one date if that's the only time he's with her, that she has looked good the entire time. He may be basing it on literally just one previous encounter there.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it's a question of did they get lucky or have they been moving around? You know, did he have her move around? You know, try, okay, this booth, this table. No, okay, this booth. All right, you sit on this side. No, you sit on the other side. Like, was there some experimentation going on here, or you know, was it just happenstance that they happened to get seated at the right spot? You know, at just the right time. We can only speculate.
Right.
Uh,
Now when Frank and Kramer enter, I gotta say how Frank drags that pole into Monk's like the Grim Reaper with his scythe, looking at just staring at George. I'm just like, oh man, he is frightening. I cannot imagine being raised by this man.
And Jason Alexander plays it so well too. He's like, "What's that? Is that the pole?" I mean, it's just such a great line reading there too when he recognizes what's going on because he hasn't seen this in years, and he figured he was done with it, and now all of a sudden, just this horror of this shock of seeing this pole again.
Yeah,
Kramer really does it into like all three of his friends in this episode, starting with George here, getting Frank all worked up about Festivus again.
yeah, getting Jerry in trouble with Gwen because he doesn't recognize her and thinks Jerry has another girlfriend, and then he brings the guys from the track to Frank's house for the Festivus meal.
What a great friend.
Yeah. But yeah, George really sells this of the resignation of, you know, this thing is happening. But of course, you know, this is my father. This is my life. Of course, he's dragging this pole around. Why would I expect anything different?
I'm assuming in reality he just picked the pole up. He just bought the pole and wait, no, he had it in storage, didn't he? So he took the pole out of storage and went with Kramer to hunt his son down in a public place to put it, and brought the recording with him too.
Right. Well, yeah, because because Frank, they don't even live in Manhattan. Because you could say, well, yeah. So you think like, well, maybe he has a storage unit, and that's where he was going to get the pole. But yeah, that would be in Queens. He dragged this pole on the subway into Manhattan to show his son. With the recording. And that's where we get introduced. Yeah, so the Costandas were one of these families where they record the holiday gatherings with the children so they can embarrass them later. And this is where we get introduced to the concept of the feats of strength as part of the Festivus tradition.
Oh, so good. And the fact that only weak people wear glasses.
Yeah.
You don't need glasses. You're just weak.
You're just weak. This brings back so many memories. Yeah. This is great.
That line hit a nerve. I'm sorry, Sean.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to bring this up with my therapist tomorrow. This is all bringing back memories. And then to close out this scene, Gwen walks in, and it's the worst of the two faces here. And of course Kramer, is good for Kramer in that he doesn't actually say anything to her, but he has an obvious reaction of this person's not not attractive. So then what's our next scene? Our next scene is then we're back at H&H once again, where Elaine continues to wait for the call, and Kramer has sabotaged sabotaged the bagel shop, in the name of Festivus, I guess.
Sure.
He calls to warn Elaine, but actually what he's done is just, I guess broken a valve on a steam pipe, so steam is coming out. But, they can still make bagels. It's just a little steamy.
Yeah.
So
how do you like your bagels now?
How do you like your bagels? Yeah, and they just,
shrug.
Continue to shrug. Yeah, continue to make bagels. So now heading back to George's office, George is approached by Kruger, who apparently has decided, well, he needs to make a donation with some of the company's money and they've decided, this human fund thing sounds good, and hands George a check for $20,000, which is, yeah, that's a nice hunk of change.
Yeah.
And then Kruger has locked himself out of his office again, so he's going home.
He's going home.
Oh,
I guess it's good to be the boss.
yeah.
And so then that's a real quick scene. So then we jump back once again to the Monk's coffee shop, where Jerry has Gwen in their particular booth where she would look good. And Gwen is not impressed with this particular establishment. She's wondering why they always come here. And she's not happy about the rubber band in her soup, which I can kind of understand, but
It's a little picky.
Jerry is amused. He says, "Oh, I know who's cooking today." Apparently, rubber bands are a common thing at this place. Well, I guess I was going to say, we wouldn't know because they don't often get soup, but maybe that's why we don't usually see them ordering soup at the diner, because of the rubber bands.
Well, they don't seem to care because after Gwen bails and George comes to eat the soup, he sees the rubber band and he's like, "Up, Paco," and then he doesn't seem to care.
No, and he gives the rubber band a little flick and then
sends it back to Paco.
Yeah, sends it right back. Oh, Paco. Yeah, and then and George has to kind of reveal that he's got this check for $20,000 and isn't quite sure what he's going to do with it. He's thinking about maybe keeping it and maybe making the human fund a real thing. Start his own philanthropic endeavor. And I like this the back and forth. George says, this might be my chance to start giving something back. And Jerry says, "You want to give something back? Start with the $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then so keep this train moving. We head on over to back to H&H, where Kramer is out. He's out in the cold. He's got his picket sign: Festivus yes, bagels no. And Elaine finally gets the call. She gets the call from Denim Vest and arranges to meet him to make the exchange. Only now, from sitting in the steam of the bagel shop, now Elaine is the Two-Face who doesn't look as good as she did at the party. And and now it's I guess the snap vest is on the other chest or something, or not sure how that saying goes, but the vest is on the other chest, as now it's Kevin McDonald's turn to give Elaine a fake number.
Yeah, he says, Yamahama, it's Fright Night. And I just want to put a shout out to Fright Night Minute. Great podcast.
Minute. Yeah.
Well, also in an episode of various interesting pickup lines or attempts at men to get women, his plan was that he was going to meet her, but he conveniently left the card back in his apartment in a very overt attempt to get her to go back to his apartment just to get the card. I guess thinking once he has her there, he could really turn on the charm and hope to bring things to the next level.
I can't go down. I can't go there now.
Yeah. Back at my place, but I can't go there now.
Yeah.
So yeah. Obviously had a ruse going on that has seemingly backfired, because he does not want to take the Schwitzdy lane back with him. Oh, and then also this is also the scene where Kramer runs into Gwen, but she is in the good lighting, so he does not recognize her. Says, "Oh no, you're yeah." What's he say? Oh yeah, you're much better looking and like a foot taller. So I don't know what he thought he saw at Monk's, but yeah, he doesn't recognize Gwen, and so now she thinks he's got another less attractive, much shorter girlfriend that he's seeing on the side.
Right.
And then we close out this second act. We're back at the Clamp Center, where Kruger calls George into his office to let him know that turns out there's no such thing as the human fund. That it's a complete fake, and George, being unusually quick on his feet, comes out with which I guess is not entirely a lie, in that he doesn't really celebrate Christmas, but he was he was sort of embarrassed to discuss Festivus, which we know is true. He is really embarrassed to discuss Festivus, but he thought he might be persecuted for his beliefs. He says, well, I could, Festivus is real. I could prove it if I had to. And Kruger says, yeah, you probably should, which is kind of setting up a following scene. But so that closes us out for our second act of the program. And so it brings us to my next question for my guests. And that is, do you feel that this episode captures the spirit of Hanukkah? And that is whatever that means to you when you think of the spirit of Hanukkah. Is that captured by this episode of Seinfeld?
I will say yes.
Go ahead.
Because
I'll take that as a yes. Yeah.
my family's holiday celebrations really weren't traditional at all. I've long since given up on religion, but we did celebrate Hanukkah as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of stopped doing it for a while as a family. Then once I got married and my wife was Catholic, is Catholic, not was Catholic, is Catholic, and so our kids are now celebrating Christmas because my wife is Catholic. Suddenly, my parents brought Hanukkah back, so that my kids would also celebrate Hanukkah as well. All of a sudden, after 20 years of not doing it, so just sort of the haphazard, non-traditional nature of how my family has done Hanukkah, so it fits right in as far as I'm concerned, is the spirit of Hanukkah. Absolutely.
There you go. And Robin.
Yeah, I was raised with Christmas, but it was all like my parents never went to church, or it was all like very non-denominational. Like it's just Santa Claus and commercialism, basically. So I really didn't grow up with much knowledge of Hanukkah, and I'm always happy to learn more. But the most I know about it, unfortunately, sadly, is through Adam Sandler. So I will just shut up at this point.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I grew up in a nominally Jewish household, but we were more, I guess, culturally Jewish than religiously Jewish. And at one point we even did like the Hanukkah bush thing, where we had like a little tree that we would decorate for Hanukkah, kind of following into the Christmas tradition that is so overwhelming in Western culture. But I would say, yeah, so this does capture certainly the embarrassment of parents. That is a tradition, captures that. And certainly, yeah, a lot of the secular or more cultural aspects of sort of the holiday season. So kind of, I think, without more Hanukkah, overt Hanukkah references, this kind of embodies as much the spirit of Hanukkah as it can. I will give it high marks on that account as well. So getting into our Act 3 to wrap it up. So we are at the Costanza residence in Queens. Mm-hmm. We've got George and Frank and Estelle and Kruger is there. George has brought his boss to just show him how real this Festivus thing is. And I'm not sure why Elaine is there, but maybe she's just like, this is so crazy, I have to see it for myself. But they're surprised to see George, who says he is embracing his roots. And Jerry rightly knows that they nailed you on the 20 G's. Jerry makes that connection pretty quickly, because of course, why else would he be bringing his boss to Festivus dinner? And then Kramer shows up, and he just happens to have, the bookie and Charlie in tow. Yeah, and it's and the guy says, the bookie played by Tracy Letts says, damnedest thing, me and Charlie were calling to ask you out, and we got this bagel place. And Kramer jumps in. I told him I was just about to see you. It's a Festivus miracle. Yeah, thanks, Kramer.
I love the blocking here, though, where in the first off-track betting scene, like Charlie is just sitting behind Tracy Letts, like over his shoulder, like hovering. And of course, when they all sit down for dinner, Charlie doesn't sit at the table; he sits
Yeah.
right over the shoulder of Tracy
Yeah.
Letts.
He's right over his shoulder, just kind of
creeper.
hanging there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me just state for the record, although this has nothing to do with Seinfeld or this episode, but I simply have to say that Tracy Letts' wife in real life is one of my major celebrity crushes, Carrie Coon, and so I just had to
Yes.
make that statement.
Oh,
It was needed to
I
be
didn't know
said.
that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it needed to be said.
Yeah. Yeah, and this whole time, like this particular scene, Charlie doesn't say anything, but he's giving Elaine like looks, just like the smile. That he's like raising his eyebrows.
I'm a man.
I'm a man. Yeah, it's a real lesson in terms of kind of just doing without doing anything. He isn't really doing anything other than walking in and then sitting down, but it's the way he doesn't do it that's so good.
And there are probably on YouTube, there are outtakes of in this scene when Elaine asks what happened to my horse, and he said they had to shoot it. There are outtakes of that Julia Louis-Dreyfus cannot get through that one shot without cracking up, like just over and over and over again.
Yeah, she is famous / infamous for that. Yeah, apparently Michael Richards would get very annoyed at Julia Louis-Dreyfus and her inability to get through some of these scenes. But I must say, like, I can't really blame her. I can't get through watching them without laughing. But it's also not my job, so that's okay. So, Frank gets up, he, to kind of kicks things off. He welcomes the newcomers. And as is tradition, Festivus begins with the airing of the grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear it. That's the spirit of Hanukkah right there. I mean, if that isn't, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I like this. And then Gwen pops in, and of course, how does she know that Jerry would be here? And it's Kramer told her. Another Festivus miracle. And then she accuses Elaine of being the other less attractive girlfriend that Jerry has, and that's where she talks about, I've been in that schwitz for 6 hours.
Yep. Yeah, this is where Frank airs his grievance with Kruger.
Yeah.
You couldn't smooth a sheet if you had a hot babe. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. My son tells me you're.
This is one of the main aspects of his holiday, the airing of the grievances. It's the kickoff of the holiday, and he completely blows it, and then just blows it off. He's not committed at all.
Yeah. I think he's too excited to. He knows he's gonna wrestle his son. It's coming, and he can't wait.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how much of that is, efficiency for the sake of television. Just, kind of the way Denim Fest goes right to asking, Elaine out for a date at that party. It's like, well, we really don't need, the 20 minutes or 15 minutes of chit chat and party talk before they get to, the point of the asking out kind of thing.
I read it might be an in-joke. I read that it might be an in-joke because apparently Jerry Stiller had a hard time remembering his lines during Seinfeld. So it might be a joke on his, at his behalf. But yeah, I don't know.
Hey, and it's kind of funny because it's kind of, I think, consistent with the character of Frank, that he would jump around, from thing to thing. You just kind of, which was, and that's kind of an odd line. I'm not familiar with that saying, smooth a silk sheet if you had a hot date with a babe. But then he just goes, I lost my train of thought.
I wasn't sure either. And then I looked up Kruger's business, and it's Kruger Industrial Smoothing. So apparently the business is just to smooth sheets, which sounds so boring.
I didn't know you could make a business out of that, but there you go.
I guess.
So we really don't get a lot. We kind of jump from the airing of the grievances and go almost directly to the feats of strength, as Festivus rolls on, where originally Frank Frank announces the honor for this year goes to Mr. Kramer,
Oh yeah, that's right.
who conveniently excuses himself because he has to go work a double at H&H. He caved on the strike. He says, "I really had to use their bathroom," which is a callback to the first scene, which is I think when he gives us the excuse why they're not actively picketing in front of the store anymore is because they wouldn't let him use the bathroom.
Right.
So in his picketing, he really had to use the bathroom, and so agreed to go back to work. And so the responsibility for the feats of strength will fall on George. Well, as Kruger suggests, how about
Right.
George?
Yeah.
Although Kruger did tell Frank, "I find your belief system fascinating," though. So I mean, he
Yeah.
seemed to be somewhat into it.
Yeah.
He's buying whole hog. Although he doesn't. I mean, if he was really going to be an adherent to Festivus, he would sacrifice himself. I mean, volunteer himself for the feats of strength. But no, instead he volunteers. Yeah, volunteers George, and this is so a part of the Festivus tradition is so someone from the attendees is picked to pin the host of the evening, in this case Frank, and so until George can pin Frank, Festivus is not over.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just
So good.
all so
And
good.
it's crazy when
And-
we finally get to Festivus. It is like there's like 3 minutes left in the episode. So yeah,
Yeah.
they just have to go bing, 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 bing through all the things.
um, Bing bang boom, and
Yeah.
Frank says, "Stop crying and fight your father."
Probably not the first time he said that.
Yeah, this is the best Festivus ever.
Yeah.
And we cut to a scene kind of pulling back on the exterior of the Costanza household where snow is falling. It's going to be a white Festivus this year, which is always nice.
Well, and it's
Uh,
funny that they went with a cliche shot. I mean, how many TV episodes or movies about Christmas end with the final shot of the movie or show being a zoom out of the home with snow falling?
yeah, I mean
Right.
this could be right out of Home Alone. I mean, this is
Yeah,
very
Yeah.
very traditional holiday episode or movie thing. Yeah, really puts it in the spirit of the season. And then our last roughly 45 seconds of the episode is back at H&H where Kramer is working the dough he's kneading. He's making the dough for the bagels, and the chewing gum falls out of his mouth into the dough, and it gets mixed in. He's trying to pull it out when the manager walks in and fires him. And then Kramer just says, "Thank you," gets his
Yep.
coat and leaves. And that's the end of it. And so that is, that's the strike from season 9 of Seinfeld. So my next question for you, our guest is, so as a holiday episode, is this suitable? Or maybe is this part of your yearly tradition? Is this something you're going to watch? An episode you could watch on Festivus every year?
Yeah, I definitely I'm certain I watch. I mean, it's so like quick, so I can't remember if I watch it every year, and I'm not sure if I ever like maybe once or twice have watched it on Festivus, but it is one of the holiday rotation. And like I said, I kind of gravitate towards those alternative holiday entertainment. So yeah, as I put my hipster glasses on like a weirdo. So it's just one of those things. It's not like cheesy and heartwarming. It's hilarious. So of course.
Yeah, it's not part of mine. But personal opinion aside, I mean, it's one of the more frequently referenced Seinfeld episodes. So I'm sure it's very common among Seinfeld fans to watch this on December 23rd or 24th, 25th, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, for really the whole Festivus
Yeah.
season. Yeah, likewise. I don't know if I know I don't watch this every year, but this is, I mean, the rewatchability of this is very high. It does have a lot of holiday spirit in it, so certainly appropriate to rewatch around this time of year. And I mean, Festivus is a yearly tradition in my household, solely because of this episode. I mean, we talk about particularly the airing of the grievances is one of our favorite of the Festivus traditions. But yeah, so I do think this qualifies as something for rewatchability. And I'm going to introduce something new because it just occurred to me in the shower. It was one of those moments where like, where was this idea, a month ago before I started recording these episodes. And what that is, so this new segment is I'm going to be rating the episode on a scale of 8 candles, 8 Hanukkah candles. How high does this score? And I'm gonna take off. Well, I'll take off one candle because we do not getting a retelling of the Hanukkah story. We don't get the story of the Maccabees and the oil and the temple and burning for 8 nights or any of that. So we don't have the religious Hanukkah context. So I'll take one candle off from that, and I'll take another one off because we don't get a lot of references to Hanukkah at all. Even in the modern celebration of it, we just kind of get the one happy Hanukkah from Watley, and as we've said, he only converted for the jokes. So I don't even know if we really consider him a full Jewish person. So I'm going to take off 2 candles. So I'm going to rate this 6 out of 8 candles in terms of as a Hanukkah episode. So yeah, it does get points for holiday spirit. It gets points for rewatchability. It'll get points because it doesn't favor Christmas over Hanukkah. It kind of really neglects both the holidays, both those major holidays in that respect. So so 6. So 6 out of 8 candles for me, and very much high on the rewatchability and suitability as a yearly holiday tradition. And so that brings us to the end of the Seinfeld episode. Do you have, I guess, I'll ask my guests, anything to add on the episode? And also, do you have any Hanukkah stories, any Hanukkah memories you wish to share with our listeners? And I'll start with you, Eric. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I did want
to.
Yeah, sure. Closing thoughts on the episode first. I did want to point out that there was Jerry, when talking about Gwen, refers to her as a 3D baseball card, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Sportflix, which in the 1980s was, for you youngins that don't know, were these really cool baseball cards that came out that only lasted a few years, where if you turned it to the left, you'd see one picture of the player, you turn it to the right, a second picture, and sometimes it was even a third picture. And they were so cool, but they also were much more expensive to buy than regular cards, so they didn't really last that long. So wanted to shout out Sportflix. My Hanukkah memories. So there are 2 things that I wanted to point out. One is just simply the best gift that I've ever gotten in my entire life was a Hanukkah gift. It was when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I got the Millennium Falcon one year for Hanukkah. And so you can't top that. Old classic Kenner Millennium Falcon in the early 80s will always go down as the best gift I ever received. But because you also asked us if there's a bonus if any of the memories involve lights or candles, this doesn't.
Sure.
So we got married on a Friday, my wife and I, and my mother has a friend who is Orthodox Jewish, so she could not attend the wedding because it was on a Friday. And so she did send us a gift, however. And again, as mentioned earlier, my wife is Catholic, so it was a mixed marriage. And she sent us a very elaborate ceramic menorah. And I found that very humorous that I was marrying a non-Jewish person on a Friday night, so she couldn't attend, but she made sure to have that be our wedding gift.
I swear, the more I hear about this, and the fact that Hanukkah got brought back up after 20 years really makes me wonder if you are indeed a Costanza.
Those are some great memories, great stories. So Robin, do you have any Hanukkah tales you wish to share?
Oh, I wish I did. I will say I've been asked if I'm Jewish more than a few times. And I'm just like, what makes you think that? And I really don't ever get a clear answer, so I don't know. But
you're just so good looking that
apparently that's what it is.
That can be no other explanation, I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, love this episode. I will say one great moment we kind of passed over was the whole bit where Kramer was bringing the day-old bagels to Jerry and George, and we find out that H&H has a custom of trying to fool the homeless into eating their stale bagels by sprinkling some fresh ones on top. Like, is it that important to them for the homeless to eat the stale bagels?
Yeah. And
Rather
then
than
with the
just
homeless,
tossing them?
they dig in, to get past the fresh ones.
Yeah. Oh. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it is important. You really to seal up bagels and actually freeze them if you're gonna be, if you have more bagels than you think you're gonna eat, in one sitting, and you're gonna freeze them, you're best off freezing them right away. You want to freeze a fresh bagel, and then you can pop it in the toaster, and it toasts right up, and it defrosts and toasts just fine, and then you get a toasted fresh bagel. Whereas if you leave it out for a day or two and then freeze it, you've now got a frozen stale bagel. So I'm siding with the homeless people on this one. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, I'm going to be firmly against the homeless. Put me down for that. No, I'm just kidding. I will say I'm going to have a bagel after this, just so you know. It's in the cards tonight.
All right, so we'll wrap it up. We'll kind of close it off there. And I will say a little Hanukkah memory of my own. Yeah. You reminded me, Eric. One of my best Hanukkahs as a child was getting the AT-AT from Star Wars. That was quite a toy. The AT-AT from the original from Empire, that thing that you could pose it, the legs, you could move it, but it would hold the position. Once you put it in, you could kind of walk the thing. It had a compartment where you could put, kind of put your snowtroopers inside. Yeah, that was certainly one of many, but one of the highlights of my childhood. Yeah, so I remember there was a stretch there. I was kind of right at that sweet spot. I was 6 or 7 when Star Wars first came out. And that was probably it made it easy on my parents. So there were a few years there where, like, birthday, Hanukkah, any gift giving opportunity, it was just, all right, what's the latest, cash grab from Lucasfilm and Star Wars, the latest Star Wars merchandise. And that was always what was waiting under my Hanukkah bush. So but I particularly remember getting that AT-AT as a formative moment in my childhood. All right, so wrapping up, let's. Why don't you let our listeners know where they can hear more from you? As I'm sure I know they will want to do. We'll start with so Robin, what do you got? What do you got going on? Where can folks hear your work?
My latest podcast has been Karate Kid Minute, where I've broken down minutes of the Karate Kid franchise, and as well as talk through the entire Cobra Kai series. I've got a couple of bonus episodes that are coming up this month that I'm looking forward to releasing. And I also do a podcast about the TV show Superman and Lois. So with my buddies Derek and Frank, and that's at Superman and Lois TV Talk. So Karate Kid Minute and Superman and Lois TV Talk. Yeah,
those are all great. So I encourage folks to check those out. And then Eric, I know you've got some podcasting experience yourself. So where can folks find more of you?
Yes, I've completed 2 Movies by Minute podcasts, both of which, by the way, Sean was a guest on. Flash Gordon Minute and Escape from New York Minute. They're on all the podcatchers out there, easily bingeable since they're both completed. And I even occasionally still post in both groups' Facebook fan pages, even though the shows have ended. Every once in a while, something pops up that I like to stick out there. And let me just state for the record, Sean invariably is always the first person to like every post in those groups.
Because I spend way too much time on Facebook. So, I apologize.
You love supporting your friends.
Yes, and I love supporting my friends and their podcasts. So of course, so I got a couple good guest spots. Eric was gracious enough, and his co-hosts were gracious enough to invite me on. I particularly enjoyed my minutes with Flash Gordon, where I got to not work with, but discuss the work of the wonderful William Hootkins, who appeared in that fine fic. Also a guest on Karate Kid Minute. I was gracious or lucky enough, fortunate enough to be a guest there. And so, folks, if you want to see more of my guest appearances on other podcasts, I list those at catandsean.org. It's Cat CAT and Sean SEAN.org, where I got all my podcast stuff, including my guest appearances. Our main site for Next Scene Podcast is nextscenepod.com. We are at Next Scene Pod on the social media. And so, wrapping up, well, until you pen me, this episode is not over. Let's rumble.
No.
Adam Georgie.
Happy Festivus, everyone.
Happy Festivus, everyone.
Happy Festivus.
We'll sit round the pole airing grievances. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. There's no need to bicker or argue at length. You'll get your chance in the feats of strength. So this Festivus, self-reflect with us and join the rest of us on Festivus this year. There's so much restlessness with our precedents, so let's put emphasis on this genesis. They call us treacherous, so doubt our relevance, try to discredit us or even threaten us. So don't you pester us with your pestilence, be adventurous, join the exodus with the rest of us on Festivus this year. Join the rest of us on Festivus this year.